Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you someone who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another, and invite them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I am so thrilled for this episode from my good friend, Wade King. Wade, tell everybody a little bit about who you are in case they don't know by now.
What's up? What's up, Todd? I am a teacher. I have been teaching for, 12, 13 years now. Taught grades 3 through 8. Been an administrator for 3 of those years along with teaching. I love people and I love everything engagement. My passion is music. So love to incorporate that in the classroom. But yeah, overall, I'm just your friendly neighborhood educator. That's me.
I love that. So you're just like Spider-Man, except you're a friendly neighborhood educator. I'm going to remember that one. Wade, so I'd love to know, some people when they grow up, they dream of being a teacher. But then there's also, I'm learning, I think there's a little bit larger chunk of people who don't ever see themselves pursuing that as a career, but then fall into it and fall in love with it. Did you ever growing up thinking, I'm going to be a teacher?
Not really. Like it wasn't, when I was little, I did not think, oh, I want to be a teacher. I want to be able to teach kids how, like that just wasn't me. I think I found it. And like you said, I'm finding more and more people who are getting into education for different reasons. And obviously this show, Tell Your Story, I'm sure we've heard tons and tons of people falling into the profession because of a specific purpose or reason or a why behind they got into education. But I just found going through my background a little bit, I didn't have consistent figures in my life for the most part. And I was in high school and I was like, you know what, teachers education, that has always been there. So I guess that's just what I'm called to do. And so I really wanted to be a Christian music artist. That didn't work out. Yet. So I fell into education. I think it more found me than I found it. And it's just a way for me to serve and to give back. And obviously with what my wife, Hope, and I do, we pour into teachers a lot now. And I feel like that's just as much of a calling with what we do. At the beginning, it was just all about the kids, but you can't reach the kids without reaching the educators and the adults that are involved with it. Now we're slowly trying to get the community involved with everything that teachers are doing and how fantastic they are. So I think it just all stemmed with, I wasn't excited about being an educator. I found a purpose and it found me. And so I dug all in, and that's kind of where I am. Yeah.
Well, and I love how you talk about of course your passion is with kids and you want to be that stable person in their life, and as well as all the educational side. But then you notice that, your passions kind of shift and you realize, well, I kind of like working with adults now too. And I kind of like bringing in the community side. And so I love that you bring that up, because one thing that I've seen too through these conversations is that reminder of, just because this was your passion at one point doesn't mean that it can't expand and grow into new things. And it doesn't mean you love that any less. It just means you're continuing to follow wherever your heart leads. Now, I heard you mention, and I know your passion for music, but were you always comfortable bringing that into the classroom like you do now? And when did that wall break down?
I think I started using the guitar in the classroom my second year teaching, and it was I wanted to I wanted to share who I was with my students. I don't know a better way to say that, especially that time period. I'm trying to take myself back into time with what exactly was I thinking. And so I simply brought in an acoustic guitar, played a song to math, and I was like, you know what, this is actually kind of fun. And it wasn't anything crazy. And I remember that same day, we would go out to recess. I was teaching 5th grade, and some of my students in the class, Brianna, and I've never thought, thank you for asking me about this, because I've forgotten all about this until just now. Brianna asked me, she goes, Mr. King, why don't you bring that guitar outside and we can sit on the bleachers? And so we went up, we had this huge grassy field, and most of the kids played, and most of them played that day, but brought the guitar out there and we just sang songs, looked up, I was like, what's your favorite song right now? Look it up on my phone real quick. got the tabs or the chords to play it. And I think once they found out that, hey, this is something Mr. King really likes,
Yeah.
I really started to feel more comfortable with using it. I never felt uncomfortable using it for the most part. I always feel uncomfortable singing because I'm a horrible singer. And I say that because I think that's what drives people away from using music or doing something different inside of their classroom. Even though they really want to, they feel uncomfortable with doing it. But a little trick that I tell my students and I tell everybody is, listen, I am a horrible singer. Like, you have to own up at what you're not good at. And if you do that, people will accept it instead of you pretending like you're great.
Yeah.
If you pretend like you're great, you're probably
Yeah.
not great at it. And so, yeah. And then since then, it just kind of mutates, and I've gained a little bit more insight on the different environments that I've taught in. So different styles of music, the way you deliver music inside of the classroom. And again, it's just something that excites me. I mean, that excites me just as much as integrating social studies and debate inside the classroom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have those two aspects that I really, really am really passionate about with teaching kids in the classroom, and trying to incorporate those as much as I can, because number one, it makes me a really excited teacher. And so hopefully it'll extend to the kids too.
Yeah, when you bring in things that you personally enjoy, it makes those difficult standards or those more dry
Right.
things a little bit more exciting, not only for the kids, but for us. And, we have to enjoy what we're doing as much as the kids do. But, when you were teaching in South Carolina, one thing that I think when people look at you and your success and all the things you've got to accomplish, they don't always take into account that you've worked in some really difficult environments as well, with some real struggles, where schools that were underperforming, that you were part of the team to help lift that up out of there, that team of teachers. And so, what do you remember really learning about yourself while being at a school where all eyes were on y'all to bring scores up, and the kids were hungry for teachers who were going to stick around? Like, what do you remember most about that growth in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, golly, you're really taking me back, and I love it so much. Like, this is great. Golly, I mean, I grew a lot because I was a very young teacher at the time too. But one thing that really sticks with me is just being confident in who I was, and no matter what, I wasn't going to accept any excuse for the environment or the circumstance or where the school is at or the funds or who was supporting me and who wasn't. And I said, you know what? I'm going to teach the best way I can. I'm going to give 110% to my students. Was it flashy all the time? No. And I think that a lot of times people think that engagement has to be flashy and it has to be super creative. No, it has to be intentional. It has to be the delivery of instruction and the relationships. Once you do that and you're intentional about that, you can reach kids and you can reach students. And so I just remember really growing confidence in who I was as a teacher. And I'm sorry that I keep looking down, because that's just kind of how I remember. I'm like taking myself back, like, oh my gosh, what was I actually thinking? So, I mean, it was definitely the confidence and the courage to be able to do what I knew what was best for the kids. I didn't get a lot of pushback from the administration on whatever I was doing inside the classroom. And I think that was because I just worked as hard as I could. I was always there trying to lend a hand. And it wasn't at that time period. I mean, this is before the blogging was really big. And so it wasn't like people were out there sharing super great ideas or relation. It was, you had to read it in books.
Yeah.
Like that's where you start to learn. And I think as an educator, another thing that I learned back then was never stop learning, never ask for help. And so I think definitely I had the courage to feel confident in what I was doing, but then I also was not scared to ask for help when I needed help. And I was always a student on what my kids were excited about and what they needed. And so I know you didn't ask for all of that, but those are definitely the four main aspects that I gained from teaching at Pendleton Elementary School for sure.
Well, and that makes me think about what I want to ask you next is, since that time, social media has become very prevalent. You yourself are on social media all the time, not only sharing ideas, but gaining insight from others and amplifying the work of others. And you talk about, being secure in yourself and bringing in your ideas and knowing that you're bringing yourself. But I know, because I know you, but I also know through these conversations that I've had through Tell Your Story, that no matter what level of success that you reach, doubt is always still present, and that comparison thing. And I know for some people who may be listening, they may think, but wait, I mean, he's got this conference he's a part of and he's doing all this stuff on social media. But I know doubt is still one of those things that plays a role in your life. And so how do you keep doubt from taking control and running everything?
You don't all the time. I mean, and I think that's part of it. I doubt myself constantly. Luckily, I'm married to a great woman in Hope King, and she'll call me out when I'm not being confident in who I am, and she'll literally say, "This is not why I married you. You were a confident person when I married you. This is not attractive." And I was like, okay. But those are the times that I need that kind of kick in the butt. I mean, obviously, if I'm just having a hard time, she'll come at me in a different perspective. But I think having an accountability partner, not necessarily it being someone that will hold you accountable, but will also be your cheerleader, definitely helps. And finding a core friend group that, I mean, you say it all the time, Todd. You got to reach out to people. You got to text them. You have to make sure that they know that you were there, even if you don't talk to them 24/7. You got to have that community, and I think that helps tremendously. I mean, I doubt myself all the time. I do not consider myself the smartest person in the world, the best educator. There are a lot of times when I'm like, holy crap, these people are literally listening to what I say. Who am I? And I think in my mind that the way that because I do that all the time. I probably do that daily, multiple times a day. And in my mind, what I say to myself is, these are just things that have worked for me. And then I go back to the facts of this has worked for me in the past.
Right.
And I have the receipts to show that this worked for the kids in the past.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look it up. And if I know something will work and it could potentially help other kids and teachers, my goodness, I'm going to share that. And I'm not going to shy away from doing that. And there are multiple times whenever we're speaking or we're talking or we're sharing or we're talking, whatever it is, that I do have to remind myself of that. And I'm never going to speak on something that I don't feel confident in or that I haven't seen results of, because I don't know if it works. And Hope and I have a huge responsibility to share ideas that we know the impact that they can make. I mean, this past Sunday, I did a read aloud on our ELA Live that Amelia, oh my gosh, she's so brilliant, but she organized this, and that they were willing to have me on there for one episode. And I was like, oh crap, I really did. And it would have been easy for me to back out. They're like, oh, it's fine, Wade, we got this. But I was like, no, like I wanted to challenge myself, and it wasn't perfect by any means. I messed up a lot, but I wanted to kind of prove to myself that, hey, I can do this, and being more comfortable with that definitely helps. It's just one of those things to where you can doubt yourself, but you always have to find your confidence at some point in your past to kind of reaffirm in what you're doing and who you are. And I think if you do that and you have people that can cheerlead you on from that, would definitely help.
Well, before we move into the next section of this conversation, I've got to ask you a really difficult question. I know that you love history, you love debate and bringing debate into the classroom, and you lead lots of trainings and sessions on that. So at home, who wins more arguments?
That lady. I point out because she's upstairs, but yes, Hope King for sure.
I had to ask, thinking, because like I always think about, you got all this debate experience. Does it help you or not?
It would definitely help me and I would win, but in life I would definitely lose.
Yes.
So I play it smart. I just shut my mouth. There's no reason for that. But that's a funny question.
Well, Wade, switching gears a little bit, I know part of Tell Your Story is sharing that pieces of yourself with other people. And you're a very open book, and you've kind of grown into sharing that story with others very openly. But I know the month of April is a really important month to you because it's Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I know that plays a lot into your story and who you are and what you've been through. And so kind of share with my listeners kind of why this month is so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, this month, personally, I'm a victim of I was a victim of child abuse. And so I first-handedly can understand and empathize with with kids who are stuck at home or they don't have enough food. I mean, child abuse just isn't the physical and emotional abuse. I mean, it's also going without food, and especially during this pandemic. I mean, there are a lot of students without food and resources and water, electricity. If you can imagine these families stuck inside the home, I mean, as much as Hope and I love each other, I mean, we still get irritated with each other. And so not having that outlet where kids can go to school and feel safe, I mean, it's one of those things to where this month, especially this month, in this year of 2020 with this pandemic going on, is important to bring awareness to that. And there are tons and tons of great organizations out there that you can donate to that will help relief. Now, there's a difference between just giving and then relief giving. Think about it. Relief allows you to do other things. It allows you to live. It allows you to share. It allows you to love. You're relieving somebody of something. And so it's not necessarily, when people think of child abuse, they think just surface level and what that looks like. No, there's a lot of underlying factors that contribute to child abuse. And so relieving some of those factors can ultimately, hopefully, lower the statistics of child abuse during this time period. The New York Times posted yesterday about how child abuse is on the rise this month. And so bring awareness to that is very important. Obviously, I noted that I was a victim of that. I remember every little thing that was done, but it's just part of who I am. And as I'm getting to know more people, I'm finding out, hey, there are a lot of people out there that were abused as kids in different capacities and levels and whatever it may be, but trauma has no barrier. And so understanding where that comes from and how we can actually bring awareness to that and help that out is really, really important. So yeah.
There's several things that I think you bring up that are important there. The first of all is that, it is heartbreaking when you hear that domestic abuse and child abuse are both on the rise right now, especially when it's Child Abuse Prevention Month. I mean, it just compounds the way you feel about it all. And knowing that, as educators ourselves, we can't forget that school isn't just a place of learning for so many of our kids. Right. It is that safety net, and not being able to go there. It isn't just about the missing food or the missing of their teachers. There's a lot of other things in play. But something else that you reminded me of while you were talking is that saying of, you can't judge my story by the chapter you walked in on. And I know a lot of people can easily look at somebody like you and think, wow, you've had all this success. You've got this best-selling book, this conference thing. You have had one heck of an easy life. And it's like, in addition to what you share, there's so much to all of our stories that we don't share just because they don't naturally come up in conversation. And I know for you, I mean, you've dealt with homelessness, you've dealt with abuse, you've dealt with abandonment, all of that stuff. When did you reach a point in your life where you were able to start dealing with some of that trauma?
Probably in the past year or two.
So it took that long.
Yeah, I'm 35, and so 33, midway through my 30th, my Jesus year. Almost midway through that. I never received counseling when I was younger. I lived with my aunt and uncle for an extended period of time, never saw one counselor. And it was something I think that I never really thought about because it was normal. And I mean, it still really doesn't bother me too much, but now it kind of rears its ugly head in the form of depression more than anything else. So dealing with that and understanding the root of that has been very, I mean, it's hard. It's hard for Hope and I mean, you mentioned all that we do, right? Along with that, oh, yeah, we've never addressed that Wade has struggled with this his whole entire life. And so we're going through that as well. And it's, I mean, I've never considered myself a victim of anything. It's just, like you said, it's my story. It's your story. Stories make up every single human being on this planet. And I would suggest, if you do know of somebody that has dealt with abuse and has been an overcomer and victorious of that, you definitely need to check on them, reach out to them, because if you don't, you never know what potentially could happen. The last time I looked, there were 17% of children in America are the victim of some form of child abuse. And so it's not a small problem, it's huge. But dealing with it, I mean, it's a daily thing. I think
Yeah.
about it every single day. But it's, again, it's not something that I think is odd or weird.
Yeah.
It's just part of who I am. I mean,
And
I think,
but you're also a very um you're out there a lot on social media, and when you create these social media environments, they're filled of light and positivity and happy photos, and that's just how social media is. And and when you go to your conferences, you've got to bring the energy and this positivity. How do you balance on those days where you're like, I don't want to get out of bed, or I don't want to post, everything's going to be okay, I believe it way in the back of my head, but
yeah.
today I'm not at a place for that? And how do you work through that? Because I know some people online, they're not going to know the story. They're not going to understand why you walked down the hall and you didn't smile at them, or why you didn't respond to something somebody put on your post, when you're just inside going, today was just a really tough day. But I'm not going to walk around and go, well, you should understand today's a tough day. Like, how do you balance all that?
It's hard.
Yeah.
There are, oh my goodness. I mean, the reason why I do put out a positive energy, and I give that positive energy, is because I've always told myself I will never be a victim. And if I am a victim, that means that it's taken me over, and woe is me. I'm a victim of child abuse or depression or whatever. I mean, I'm a fighter. Like,
Yeah.
I'm physically, mentally, whatever it is. Like, I mean, that's my outlet. That's what I do. And so I'll fight through anything that I can. But those days are really hard. I mean, this past national conference that we had was one of the hardest moments of, probably the second or third hardest moments of my life. And we literally were getting, where was national? Dallas, right?
Dallas.
We were in Dallas. Yeah. So we were Hope and I were getting to the airport, and we were talking before, and then we got in just a little argument. It wasn't anything big. It was just normal.
Yeah.
You didn't do this. I forgot. Oh, so sorry. And then I just completely broke down. I was in tears, literally, like, hysterically, vocally crying out loud. People were in that airport. It was kind of embarrassing because I was like, oh my gosh, these people are going to be on our plane going to Dallas. Oh my goodness. I was hiding my face like this, and Hope was like, what is wrong? I go, I don't know. I just need to, I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And it's those things that people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get there. I think Hope told Jared and Amy Lemons what was going on. They met us up in our hotel room and just spent the day with us. And it was just one of those things to where, luckily, again, you have those close-knit friends where depression was really taking a root in who I was. And this was right after Maverick was born. And so I was seeing all these thoughts in my mind were coming out about how could someone abuse a kid or a baby like this? Oh my goodness. And so all these things were building up. And again, I had never dealt with any of these moments in my life until I became an adult. And we were at the national conference, and every single day I would go do my thing, and I would go back and I would just crash. Like, I didn't want to do anything else. I couldn't do anything else. And then I was feeling guilty because I wasn't seeing my friends, wasn't seeing the presenters, and like it's really, really difficult and challenging, but people don't understand that. Mm-hmm. And you give all that you have, and it's one of those things to where if I didn't have a purpose, that God-given purpose, my faith is the root in who I am. And I truly believe that he put me through all these circumstances to give back and to serve to people, that if I didn't have that faith and that strength, then I wouldn't be able to do what I do and to serve people. And a lot of people had no clue what was going on. They still don't know what was going on. And so it was just one of those situations to where I pushed through. We got back home, and we talked about it. And so luckily I have a great wife, and that's how I get through it. I mean, she knows me now to know if I'm going through something, even if I'm not sharing it, and she'll simply ask. Yeah. And just that ask, I think, is definitely helpful.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that because what I want people to hear is that, and the reason I wanted to ask that is I knew some of that story from behind the scenes, but it's hard to talk about these things because we don't ever want anybody to think that we're complaining, because it's
Right.
not saying like you were complaining about that trip or anything like that. It's just you saying, you know what, I was in a difficult place. I needed to pull it together for all those people that paid to be there, but then I had to be by myself and I had to be with some friends here. And so I appreciate you sharing that little piece of things. But you said something in there that I'd love to kind of, as we close this conversation out here, one of the last few things I ask you is, you've got a son now. He is adorable, like his own little internet star with all the videos and the amount of gifable faces. I mean, y'all should be making gifs of like things that he
That's
does.
a great
Um,
idea.
but thinking of your own past and what you've been through, have you found yourself at times battling with that idea of I must be a better dad than what was done to me?
Um, yes. I mean, it's not really a battle. It's just a reminder.
Right.
I have, and I mean, I don't focus on that a lot. I don't even really, I think about my past, but not too often in that aspect. I'm more focused on the future and who and what I'm rooted in. And so I want to be the best dad I can be, just like our God was to Jesus. I mean, the same thing. And so to love Maverick just how the Lord loved Jesus. And that's what I try to do. And
Love
just
that.
to stay focused on that and be present and intentional, and not be that dad who just is there in the room, but just talking with him, working with him, and doing things with him, showing him Jason David Frank in your corner back there. I see that.
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
go.
I was wondering if you were gonna notice it.
Let's
it's
go.
it's it's autographed too, just so you know. I know you've got cooler stuff with the Green Ranger than I do, but and for those of you that don't know, Wade and I are both huge Power Ranger fans.
Yes.
My wife and I actually flew to Atlanta to go watch Power Rangers when it came out with Hope and Wade, but Wade has got to hang out with the original Green and White Ranger, Jason David Frank, and so he's definitely got that over my head. But I do have an autographed poster, so I've got
Let's see if we
something.
can get him on here. We'll work on that.
Let's do that. Well, Wade, what I want to close with is just this final idea of, and tell your story. There are people who listen to this that are educators, of course, but there are people, just random people who aren't educators, or just family or things like that. And so what I love to end on is, if there was one thing that's really heavy on your heart that you wish more people in our world today knew or understood, what would your one thing be
For educators
for
or
anybody?
for anybody, I think that people in general have the best intentions in whatever they do or whatever they say or whatever their actions are. And I wish people would just, on the other side of the spectrum, just anticipate that whatever's coming out or going forward is from a good place. And that's something that Hope and I have learned dealing with each other and dealing with people in general, that the people at the root are really good people. And if we, at the end of the day, just remember that, hey, whatever they're trying to do is coming from a good place and they probably mean the best that they can, it's a lot easier to accept it or to have a discussion about it. So
I love that. Well, Wade, I admire you and your work so much and really appreciate your friendship. So I'm really grateful for you to come on and have this conversation with me today.
well, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. And we'll see you soon, right?
Yep. And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Wade has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story matters.